The Worshipful the Mayor, Councillor Mr Mark Townsend. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. I would like to welcome members to this full council meeting here at the Mechanics Theatre and thank our host, Burnley Leisure, for accommodating us. Can I ask members of the public not to talk during the meeting, as this can be very distracting for members of the council and others listening to the debate. Can I also ask everyone to ensure any mobile devices are switched to silent and do not cause a distraction during the meeting. I would remind everyone that the use of mobile devices for the taking or making of phone calls is not permitted in the meeting. I would also remind members that they are required to stand when addressing the council meeting if you are able. We are not expecting a fire alarm tonight, but if one should occur, please follow the mechanics staff and officers out of the venue to the assembly point in the car park to the rear of the town hall. The meeting is being streamed, and I would like to welcome those watching on the Council's YouTube channel. When members are invited to speak, please wait for a microphone to be brought to you. At the end of the meeting, please exit the building in an orderly manner. Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda, minutes of the previous meeting of 23rd of February 2022. I will move those 23rd of February 2022 minutes. Madam Deputy Mayor, will you second that?
I do, Mr Mayor.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Item number 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest?
Oh, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, just a second, Councillor Corn. I think Councillor Townley first.
Mr Mayor, item 5C.
Mr Mayor, item 5C.
Thank you. Councillor Roger.
Item 5C.
Okay. Are there any other declarations of interest? Oh, thank you. Item number 3 on the agenda, Mayor's communications. I would like to thank the following members who are retiring for their service to the Council. Councillors Paul Campbell, Frank Cant, B. Foster and Shabana Khan. Any members? An opportunity for members to pay any tribute or say anything about those members? Okay. I'll take Councillor Lord Wajid Khan first.
Mr Mayor, just to say very briefly how much of an honour it's been to serve with all them members that are retired, especially my good friend to the left who's looking very bright red today. I think it's going to indicate something for the local elections, but it's been great to see, and of course it's very disappointing to lose another Khan in the Burnley Council family.
Thank you. Councillor Townley.
Do we have to turn these off? Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just would like to wish them all the best of luck in the future, and to say that though politically we may be poles apart, in principle we have been all the same, and this chamber has been the richer for your presence, some of you over a great deal of time, and especially to those ex-mayors who have done sterling service, and I know that everyone who leaves this chamber will continue to work for Burnley and for the betterment of all the residents therein, and to thank you all. Thank you.
Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to echo what other colleagues have said, really, in terms of thanking all the colleagues who are retiring for the service that they've done, not just for the council itself, but also for the people of the borough. And then I want to make a special mention actually for one of those colleagues who's retiring, and I did say to her yesterday that I wouldn't embarrass her, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to embarrass her. One of those councillors who is retiring is Councillor B. Foster. And I would just like to say thank you for the way that she's served Burnley Borough Council and the residents, but also on a more personal note for the support that she's provided me over the years. I've known Bea for over 20 years now, and she's one of the first people that I met when I came back from university, and we worked together on numerous projects, numerous initiatives, and she's actually one of the reasons that I'm actually in this chamber as a councillor. So I'd like to say thank you and wish her, all the councillors, but particularly Bea Foster, all the best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I just want to thank all the retiring councillors, in particular my good friend Frank Cant, Councillor Frank Cant, who, when I first became a councillor, his help and wisdom and showing me the ropes, I can't thank him enough. And enjoy your retirement, Frank. He's told me he's never lost and he's going out undefeated. I like that. and I mean, there's others that are retiring as well, but in particular, like Afrasi said, I want to thank Bea as well, Bea Foster. She is a role model for me, and as somebody that over the years, and like Afrasi, I've known her for a very long time through our community youth-related work, and Bea has done a lot of work with people like myself and Afrasi and others that she can be proud of, because these people are serving not just within the council chamber, but within various community groups and putting back in and some of the stuff that they've learned from Bea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Councillor Ishtiaq.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank everybody, all the councillors that are retiring, Frank and the others. Just to follow on from colleagues Frasiev and Councillor Shah saying about Councillor Bea Foster, I have to say I have done some work with Bea through work I did with young people, and Bea leaves a great legacy behind in terms of the work she's done with young people, and particularly young people that were ignored or were under the radar. So she kind of dedicated her life and her experience and professionalism in developing those young people. And I was out with one of those young people recently, and he couldn't stop talking about Bea and what Bea's done for him, and where he is today is all because of her contribution. And she's seen him as an asset, and she didn't fail this young person. So thank you very much, Bea, for all you've done for Burnley and Burnley's young people. You will be missed. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any other members? No? Well, thank you for those contributions. And finally, I would like to thank the following members who are retiring but are election candidates for their service to the Council. Councillors Afrasiab Anwar, Gordon Lishman, Ivor Emo, Gordon Birtwistle, Shah Hussain, Neil Mottershead, Tom Commis, Sue Graham, Jeff Sumner, Andy Fewings, Dale Ferrier. Thank you. Item number 4 on the agenda, public question time.
Jennifer Braddock has requested to speak on fly tipping, traffic problems and alligating in the Queensgate area, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Would you like to come forward, Mrs. Braddock? Thank you. Can I just say you have 5 minutes to address the council, and I'll just give you a warning when there are 30 seconds to go. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, I previously attended the full council meeting on the 8th of December 2021.
Mrs. Braddock, sorry, could you just step nearer the microphone? I think just one or two members are just struggling at the back.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, I previously attended the full council meeting on the 8th of December 2021 to outline problems in our area. We feel very let down and demoralised at the progress made as we attempt to keep the area a decent place to live in. Firstly, the waste bins at the corner of Brennan Street and Corn Road by the bus stop and at the junction of Fraser Street and Bracewell Street have still not been replaced despite assurances that they would be. Neither has the dog waste bin on Fraser Street. Consequently, there are lots of dog faeces along the pavement, which is extremely unpleasant and unhygienic. Fly tipping is another major problem. Areas such as around Bowden House, the rear of 46 Briarcliff Road, and several surrounding back streets are regularly reported, but nothing seems to be done. The land by the garages at the rear of 14 to 44 Brennan Street is disgusting. It is covered with litter, black bags, broken glass and abandoned plastic goods. Some alley gates in the area are never closed. The gates between 14 Brennan Street and the shop have had a broken lock for at least 2 years, despite this being reported several times. The lock at the rear of 55 Brennan Street was reported last October, having been locked to an upright bar and damaged, however as yet not been touched. But after a phone call on Monday afternoon from Richard Brown, this lock was replaced yesterday. Most mornings, Corn Road is full of rubbish, mainly takeaway containers, bottles and cans. The poor man who cleans it must get very demoralised by the amount he has to clear every single day. We feel the shop should ask customers to be more respectful and also help to provide receptacles for refuse, as the current bins available are not large enough to take all the waste. We also have rats in the area. There have been 2 recently been seen dead on Sharp Street and Walpole Street. There are also houses on Brennan Street having problems, and they have also been seen around the Baltic Fleet on Briarcliff Road. All the food waste and containers deposited on the streets does not help with this problem. We've recently lost 3 planters from the central reservation on Corn Road. This, in addition to the 3 we lost last year from between Newman Street and Everett Street. This central reservation is now frequently being used as a car park at times, along with pavements on Corn Road, particularly at the junction of Corn Road and Murray Street, and cars are also being parked by the bus stop at Ryland Street and Murray Street, obstructing traffic and causing accidents. We still have problems with cars racing around the area, especially along Corn Road, Briarcliff Road and the streets in between. Drivers have also been witnessed performing illegal U-turns on Corn Road, narrowly missing pedestrians crossing the road who do not expect cars coming from behind them. Another recent problem has been that one of our residents has been given verbal abuse by residents of an HMO. The pavement was blocked by goods and open car doors, and as she couldn't pass, she closed the car door and subsequently received a torrent of abuse which was extremely intimidating. I'm confident that everyone in this room would not like to be in the position of regularly dealing with such problems. As a residents group, we are happy to support the council and councillors in their initiatives. However, we also expect more support and action in resolving the issues many residents have to face day after day. We are asking that the council helps us to make our area a safe and clean place to live in, and welcome your thoughts on how this can be achieved together. Tonight, I am asking for the executive member and staff from Street Scene to join with some residents in a walk around the ward to see the mess we have to live in. We have had enough.
Thank you, Mrs. Braddock. Councillor B. Foster, would you respond to Jennifer Braddock, please, as the relevant executive member?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for coming along and raising your concerns. I'm really sorry that you do feel let down by the council. My conversations with Street Scene are that they have been monitoring the situation up in the Colne Road area in different ways over the last few months. I know that the alligators have been causing a problem, a challenge, and that's been something to do with, without going into too much detail, around squatters and things. But I believe now, as you said, that they are being resolved, and the alligators, one's been sorted, and I believe the others have been ordered. As to the traffic challenge, as we all know, this area, Colne Road, is very challenging around fast cars going up and down, very much so. And that we are aware of that, and it has been raised by officers as a priority to the Lancashire Road Safety Partnership for targeted enforcement in that area. But of course, as with lots of things, there are priorities. And unfortunately, until accidents happen in areas and the numbers for accidents puts them up into a priority area, then often things don't move as quickly as we would all like. To do with the fly tipping, I'm sure that you'd agree with us, as lots of us in this room would agree, that this is really a challenge across Burnley in lots of areas. And streets in, I believe the officers have looked at the list that you've given and are looking at how those can be resolved, and will actually feed back to you yourself about the actions that have been taken. But I do want to appeal to everybody around the way that fly tipping, dog fouling, the bins that are damaged get sorted is for people to report them in through Street Scene to the officers so that they then can deal with them as quickly as they can. Because as we all know, broken things or litter then gathers other litter, etc. So it needs to be dealt with quickly. So I appeal to everybody to encourage residents to report them as quickly as they see them, or us as councillors to report them in so that they can be dealt with. Because all of us, like you say, want to have Burnley as a decent, safe place that people can be proud of. So again, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Any member? Councillor Birtwistle.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I've had the pleasure on a number of occasions of attending the Burnley Lane meeting that Mrs Braddock and her colleagues have. And these problems come up time and time again. And I've actually walked in some of the areas with Mrs Braddock and her colleagues. The majority of the rubbish and the litter is on privately owned land. Take those garages. There's a line of garages, as has been said tonight, that's piled high in front of it with rubbish, plastic bags and all sorts of garbage is thrown on there. That land is privately owned. Why does the council not serve notice on these people and take them to court to tidy the land up? A lot of it is on private land, and we don't seem to get these people into court and ensure that they get the land tidied up. I don't think it's right that the taxpayer should be paying to tidy land up that is owned by a private individual who allows dumping to go on that land. And I think it's time the council really started getting some of these people into court, because we have the legal power to do that. There's no argument in the case, we have the legal power. It's on their land, it should be tidied up. If the executive member or the new executive member after tonight wishes to walk round the ward with some members of staff from Street Scene with Mrs Braddock and her colleagues, I will happily join them, and we will see what we can do about getting some paperwork out to the courts about the people that are really hoarding this stuff. If you go to Byron House, the guy who owns Byron House owns the land around it. You can't walk around there without boots on because of all the needles, the broken gas bottles, the little gas what people, the druggists sniff. They're all around it. It's a dangerous area to go. Why is he getting away with it? Why are we not serving a notice on the guy that owns that land to clean it up? and make him pay to do it. So I do hope that the new executive member will take this on board, and I hope he or she walks around the ward, and I say I will happily ride shotgun and go around with them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burtwis. I'm just going to say, I think we've asked in the past that we refrain, if we can, from saying specific addresses or private individuals when we're addressing the council. I think the point is well made, Councillor Burtwhistle, but if we can just refrain from that as we go through the business tonight, that would be helpful. Thank you. Any other member? Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on that point that Councillor Burtwhistle has made around, obviously, post-May, one of the things that we'll offer is that not just the executive member, but also if the leadership as it is now, then I will make the offer of actually going and meeting with the group and going and having a look at and seeing if we can look at resolving some of those issues that you've raised tonight, Mrs. Braddock. So I look forward to that in the new municipal year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other member? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Braddock. Item number 5 on the agenda, items for decision by the Council. Can I point out to members that items for decision by Council are treated as motions. Once a proposal has been moved and seconded, members may speak once and for a maximum of 5 minutes. Members may then only speak again on an amendment. Will members please note that the relevant minute extracts from the 6th of April 2022 executive meeting relating to items 5A and 5B have been published on members' iPads as a supplementary to the agenda pack, and the relevant decisions for full council have been highlighted in bold in each minute. Item 5A, Council Tax Rebate and Discretionary Fund. Councillor Sue Graham, will you move the report's recommendations?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the report's recommendations, and the report and the guidelines that are attached to it, I think, are self-explanatory. If you're on direct debit, and that's really the easiest way to pay your council tax bill these days, you will get the £150 rebate fairly promptly. If you're not on direct debit, you'll still get it, but it will take a little bit longer as we have to check bank details for everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser Anwar, will you second that?
I second that report, Mr. Mayor.
Any member? No? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Any against? The item is carried. Item 5B, Pennine Lancashire Building Control withdrawal from joint agreement. Councillor John Harbour, will you move the report?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I move the report, Mr. Mayor, and in doing so, wish to clarify that recommendation 4 should read that the Executive recommends to full Council that the PLBC Constitution be removed from the Burnley Council's Constitution once the exit arrangements for PLBC partnership agreements have been completed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser Anwar, will you second the report?
I second the amended recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any member? No. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please show. The item is carried. Item 5C, appointment of Mayor and Deputy Mayor 2022-23.
Mr. Mayor, if you will excuse those of us with an interest, please.
Yep. We'll just wait, colleagues, until members have left the room. Councillor Fraziab Anwar, will you move the report's recommendations?
I move the report's recommendations, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Sue Graham, will you second that?
I'll second that with great pleasure, Mr Mayor.
Any member? Okay, to the vote. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please show. The item is carried. Can we please ask members to return to the room? Thank you.
Knife edge.
Please be pleased to know about the result was okay. Item 5D, constitutional updates. Councillor Fraziab Anwar, will you move the report's recommendations?
I move the report's recommendations, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Sue Graham, will you second that?
I second that report, Mr Mayor.
Any member? To the vote. All those in favour, please show. All those against, please show. The item is carried. Item 6, reports from committee chairs. Please can members note that for this item, members should not refer to named individuals when asking questions or making observations. Questions on delegated council functions should be directed to the relevant committee chair rather than executive members. Item 6A, scrutiny. Councillor Howard Baker, will you move the report?
I move that report, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member? No. Item 6B, Audit and Standards. Councillor Lord Wajid Khan, will you move the report?
Mr Mayor, I do move that report with great delight.
Thank you. Any member? No. Item 6C, Licensing. Councillor Jeff Sumner, would you move the report?
I move my report, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Any member? No. Okay. 6D, Development Control. There is no report for this meeting, taking into account that at the time of publication of the agenda, there had not been a Development Control meeting since the last full council. Item 7, Strategic Plan Progress Reports. I will take each report in order. I will ask for any questions on the report and the executive member will respond to one question at a time. The same procedure will then be followed for observations. Can I remind members with a question or observation to clearly quote the page number and reference? Also, will members please be concise with their questions and observations? Leader, Councillor Fraziab Anwar, will you move your report?
I move my report, Mr Mayor.
Any questions? No. Any observations? No. Okay. Moving on. Deputy Leader and Executive Member for Resources and Performance. Councillor Sue Graham, will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move my report. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? No? Any observations? Councillor Baker.
Thank you. Page 47, PF3. Just to say, I have noticed the new council website, and I'm pleased to see that the search bar for the first time ever works. And it's come, if you look for private rented sector forum, something I'm keen on, then you find PRSF, and it actually finds it this time for the first time in 8 years. So thank you very much, officers, or whoever did it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Townley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to give credit where credit is due for the achievement of the bronze carbon literacy accreditation, which I think we should sing about and know that we are on the road to greater things. Thank you.
Any other observations? No? Okay. Executive Member for Health and Wellbeing. Councillor Margaret Lishman, will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to move my report and take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Any observations? Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Observation, page 50, self-isolation with regards to COVID. Would the executive member agree with me with regards to... So observation, yeah, would she? Yes. And with regards to COVID isolation and what's recently happened, how disgraceful the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have been, whilst all of us have adhered to the laws of self-isolation and sticking to the rules. We had the two senior most politicians in the country breaking those rules. And I would encourage our Conservative leader to say a few words on that. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lishman. I think a microphone for Councillor Lishman.
Thank you. I think I can sum it up very simply. If you make the rules, you should obey the rules.
Thank you. Councillor Ferrier.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll stick to local council, thank you, which is what we're meant to be doing. PL451, as in page 51. So about the Grantley 890,000 for Townley Hall, which is great because it's one of our historical landmarks in Burnley and deserves a bit of TLC, but I will suggest a bit of caution in the sense that we don't have a repeat of the town hallway sort of can of worm situation we're finding. There's a bit of a careful eye over it, I think. As you can see in a couple of years' time, they found something else and something else and something else. Because it is an old building after all. But I think as well, Mr Mayor, didn't Councillor Lishman not mention a particular reference? A page reference, or she was responding, was she? Pardon me, sorry, it's a portfolio. I'm getting slightly ahead of myself. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Lishman.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with you, Councillor Ferrier. We have, and officers will know, and I know our Chief Executive will know, and so will our Chief Operating Officer, that one of the things I have said right from the very beginning was that we learn the lessons that we learned from the town hall work that we did. We have had a much more detailed survey done, so that as near as we can, we think we know what we're doing. But, as you have pointed out, it is a very old building. that has been standing for a very long time. And sometimes when you start to do the work, you discover other things. So I'm not going to categorically say that we won't find anything, but I will tell you hand on heart that I have asked for and have been assured by officers that we have done all of the investigations that have been possible to do at this stage in order to make the assessment for the work that needs to be done on that building. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other observations? Councillor Lord Wadji Khan.
Mr. Mayor, without wanting to prolong this very efficiently fast meeting, but I'm going to talk about page 50, item P4, and I want to first of all pay testament to my good friend, Honourable Member Shah Hussain. I think this is a portfolio which talks about mental health and well-being, and I want to observe that it is absolutely shocking that so many residents in Burnley and Padiham have sacrificed so much, lost loved ones. You have people working 18-hour shifts, exhausted and tired, and then to see what's happened over the last few days where the Commander-in-Chief of this country and his next-door neighbour, the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, to be fined for breaking the law. What does it do? What message does it send to the thousands of residents in this constituency, Burnley, and across the United Kingdom? It's one rule for them and another rule for us. And I think it's really important when we talk about well-being, how people have struggled after the last 2 years in an unprecedented pandemic, global pandemic, where we've really actually seen a high rise in the cases of mental health problems, and to see the Commander-in-Chief, the Prime Minister, do what he did and break the law, I think it's catastrophic, disastrous, preposterous, and it's an insult to the people of Burnley and Padiham. And in a few weeks' time, they'll be able to send their message back. And I just wanted to register my frustration and discontent of what's happened, and I hope the people of Burnley and Padiham are taking note of what's happened and this law-breaking Prime Minister that we've had.
Thank you. Do you want to respond to that, Councillor Lishman, or did your previous response? Right, okay. Councillor Townley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 50 on that note. I would like to say that we need to disassociate our local councillors of all persuasions who are standing in the local elections from that last triad of, it wasn't even an argument, quite frankly. It was simply political posturing. We're talking about local elections here, and anyone listening to this should be sure that their councillors of whatever persuasion, but especially I would say the Conservative persuasion, have been working extremely hard on their behalf and do not deserve to be tainted by national politics of this present moment.
Do you wish to respond to that one, Councillor Lishman? No. Okay. I've got Councillor Birtwistle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's PL4, and it's spreads over on to page 52, related to the Stables Cafe. Could I welcome the fact that work has now started on the Stables Cafe? It's been closed for a long, long time. And could I maybe ask I know it's not a question, could I refer the executive member to the questions I've been asked by people of when do they anticipate the Stables Cafe to be reopened?
Yeah.
Oh, well, if you know the answer, don't ask a question.
Councillor Lishman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I understand it, the lease has been finalised. The work is ongoing. As it says in my report, we're hoping it'll open in early May. There has been some additional external work done so that there's more available space for them to serve. So that's a big advantage over where it was. We're hoping that it will happen soon. I did ask that question myself today, and I haven't got a straightforward answer. I've got an answer that will get it soon, and I can assure the member that as soon as I know, I'll pass that information on.
Councillor Gordon-Lishman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just thought in the circumstances someone ought to say a word in defence of the Prime Minister. We have noticed over the course of several years that he has a casual relationship.
Sorry, can we have a page number and a...
As referred to earlier, Mr. Mayor, page 50.
Okay.
We do know that the poor man has only a casual relationship with telling the truth, a tendency to hypocrisy, and very little grasp of the proceedings of government. I think, therefore, that it would be reasonable for us to recognise that this latest behaviour is simply part of a continuing pattern which deserves our sympathy, and we hope that he will soon have time for appropriate treatment. However, following Councillor Townley's comment, I understand very much her desire that local councillors and the local party should not be tainted by these matters. There are two obvious routes to avoid that. The first is to say that these things that have clearly happened are unacceptable, and to dissociate yourself and your colleagues from them, and to join many others of your party who have been doing that. The second thing, looking at the Conservative Party and what it has now become, suggests the obvious answer to avoid being tainted is to leave it.
Thank you. Are there any other... well, do you want to respond, Councillor Lishman? Okay. Thank you. Are there any other observations on Councillor Lishman's report? Okay. Executive Member for Housing and Development Control, Councillor John Harbour, will you please move your report?
I'll move my report, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Townley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 55, PL3. I just wondered if the exec member could perhaps update this council on what we are going to have to pay for the pointless political posturing in the development control meeting, which led to going against officer recommendation on the land around the Isaac Centre, and which will consequently cost the residents of this borough a great deal of money when we lose the appeal.
Okay. Councillor Harbour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, they won the appeal, but I don't think the costs have actually been inferred yet. They're still discussing that. And again, I appreciate what Councillor Townley is saying there, but the fact is that on planning, officers give recommendations and members should take those recommendations on board. It was clearly spelt out to all colleagues of all parties on planning, and some of those colleagues ignored that advice. Now, the fact is, there's nothing to say that they've always got to follow officer advice. But that being said, when professional people are offering advice and warning that there may be cost, I think colleagues from all parties should be perhaps a little bit more careful before making decisions in future. But as I say, planning, it's there. There's no group whips, there's no instructions, there's nothing like that goes on. It's down to the individual. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Fewings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Page 55, PL3. It's just about the same thing, really. Can I just clarify from both the question and the answer to the question if people are being accused of using political posturing on development control? Because that's a serious accusation. So can that just be clarified? Thank you.
Councillor Harbour.
In all honesty, Mr. Mayor, I don't think it's any political posturing goes on in the development control. But the fact is, and again, individual councillors, I would say, need to think carefully when decisions are coming to us. There are tough decisions to make sometimes. They're not always appreciated by the public. But again, we go through training every year for development control, and for some reason, colleagues don't listen to the advice, A, what they're given at training, and B, what they're given on the night. Now again, that's not against the law. It's foolhardy, in my opinion, but unless unless you are turning applications down, you've got to make sure you're turning them down for the right reasons, for planning reasons. And at this moment in time, some colleagues aren't doing that. But again, Mr. Mayor, in my opinion, it's not about politics.
Any other questions? No. Observations. Are there any observations? Councillor Birtwistle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It relates to PL3 and the discussions we've just had. I mean, I've been on DC for 35 years, and now I sit there sometimes and think, what is the point of DC? We go into a meeting and we are elected by members of our community to stand up for their views. It's important to residents about the area that they live in, the communities that they live in, the environment that they live in, and what is happening to the area that the councillor represents. And he represents the people that live in that area. We now get reports every time saying you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do the other. In fact, at the development control meeting of last week, I heard a news story. There are I can't remember the terminology now, but if you get over a certain on KPIs, the government issue KPIs. And if we turn down quite a number of development plans, our KPIs go up. And if our KPIs, and I've been on, say, 35 years, never heard of this, if our KPIs get above 10, then the government will take over the Planning and Development Control Committee, and we will have no say. I have to say at the moment, we have very little say anyway, because we have a plan about the climate change strategy on this council now that doesn't relate to the planning strategy of this council. So how on earth can elected members go to a planning meeting and decide they will support the council's climate change strategy, and they say we don't agree with this development because of this is going to destroy the climate, this is going to destroy the wildlife in our area, this is releasing carbon into the atmosphere. These are the things that the government are asking us not to do, and yet in planning we have to do it. Now, if somebody can explain to me how this all works, I don't know. It was never like that before. A councillor's view was taken on board. A councillor's view now is in some cases ridiculed. And you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you can't do this. What, I put to members here, what is DC for? Only to rubber stamp the officers' recommendations. And if we don't rubber stamp them, then the developer will take us to appeal, and we will lose, and we'll have to pay the costs. So I say again, why DC is a regulatory committee. The members who serve on it do it for the right reasons, to represent the wards and the people that live in the wards. But when we represent the people, we're saying we can't. represent the people. So where is the democracy in all this? I must confess, I don't know. And to me, and we said on Thursday, every member of that committee asked the question, why are we here? Because it's absolutely pointless. We might as well give the officers the right to sign everything through, and then we'll never get in trouble. Maybe the council should look at its constitution and come up with the idea of not having a DC committee, just having a meeting between officers and a few members and the executive member, and just pass these things through. I'll look to the advice of people that can advise me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Right, okay, before we carry on, and I'll let you carry on there, but just to get to the end, because you were making a point, but questions on delegated council functions should be directed to relevant committee chairs rather than executive members. And basically that's where the DC report should have come in. Now I know all the members want to speak, but I think just bear that in mind before you do speak, if that's okay. Right, Councillor Harbour, do you want to respond to Councillor Birtwistle, obviously from that last observation, and then we'll move on from there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I don't wish to prolong this, but some of the things Councillor Birtwistle said there about standing up for residents, yes, we do stand up for residents, but we stand up for residents with all views, not just one particular view. And we're there to represent all views, not just in one area, but across the borough. That's what planning should be about. It's not a case that officers never say that you can't do this, you can't do that. You can make a decision on whatever you want to decide. All officers say to us, in their professional opinion, that you've got to have planning grounds, either to turn something down. And they advise us sometimes that the grounds we put forward, in their professional opinions, aren't strong enough. Doesn't mean to say that you can't still vote against it, but they're just doing their professional job, offering professional, in my opinion, independent advice. And Councillor Birtwistle said, and I don't think he actually meant what he said really, but he said that all members were asking, why are we here? Well, the fact is all members weren't asking that question, Mr. Mayor. One or two were.
Okay, thank you. Please bear in mind what I just said about delegated functions. I've got Councillor Townley and then Councillor Camp. Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
Townley.
Mayor. Just, I'm glad we have had this debate, whether it was the right place or not. My observation on this is that our training for members on DC is not robust enough, and that those sitting on that committee make frivolous decisions without looking at the financial trouble that they put this council into, despite by not taking, or at least digesting and cogitating on the professional advice that is given by our officers. I am in no way saying that we should never go against officer recommendation, but we should go against it in the full knowledge of what we're doing and with proper planning reasons, and not put the residents and the borough in financial peril of paying large claims by unnecessary and frivolous reasons.
Okay. Councillor Harbour, do you want to respond to that?
On this occasion, Mr. Mayor, I think I'll just leave that one.
Okay.
I think things have been said now far more eloquently than I said previously, but basically that's what
Okay, thank you. Councillor Khan. Just wait for a microphone.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having spent 22 years on development control and been chair of the development control for for a considerable time, if not chair, vice chair, I've experienced plenty of training. I've understood the training. I don't think some of the members have really took a grasp of what development control is all about. Development control is governed by a lot of rules, and the rules are very, very complex. You've got national policy framework guidance, you've got local guidance, you've got the local plan, you've got all sorts of different policies, of which our professional officers have had extensive training in. And when they offer advice, we should really be looking at that advice. And it seems to me, I might sort of disagree slightly with Councillor Harbour when he says sometimes there's a little bit of political political persuasions from, I've sort of witnessed it. I can't prove it, but I've seen certain groups seem to vote in particular ways. And it is very, very, very complex, is development control. But we should look at whether it's going to put the finances of the borough in jeopardy, and I really, really should be looking at taking their advice more seriously. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cant. Councillor Harbour, do you want to respond to that observation?
Just to repeat myself again, Mr. Mayor, that as far as I'm concerned, all colleagues from all parties are aware that there should be no political persuasion going on regarding how individual colleagues vote at planning. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other observations on this report? Okay. Executive Member for Community and Environmental Services, Councillor B. Foster, will you please move your report?
I'm happy to move my report, Mr. Mayor, and take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Commis? Right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is in regard to PL1 on page 59 and the Public Space Protection Order in reference to the town centre. I'm just wondering, obviously this has been in place for some time, just, you know, as an observer outside, it doesn't seem to have had a great deal of effect. I was just wondering if there's been any movement or you've had any ideas of getting more assistance from the police, because it doesn't seem to be being policed that effectively at the moment.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you. I think there's been a bit of a misunderstanding about what this particular issue is that you've just raised. I'll come to about the policing in a moment, but this public space protection order, this is asking and informing the council that this has now got to be renewed in October 2022, and that we're wanting views, consultation from ward members and anybody else really, residents, as it says, progress updates and engagement of ward members and key stakeholders will follow, because we're wanting to know if there are if we need to do any changes to this public space protection order. I am aware, I think, what you're talking about is the antisocial behaviour that has been happening within the town centre at this moment in time. And I can assure everyone and all residents who are watching that there has been lots of joint partnership working between lots of agencies to actually bring about a good resolution to that what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Are there any observations? No? Thank you for your final report, Councillor Foster. Executive Member for Economy and Growth, Councillor Asif Raja, will you please move your report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I move my report, and in doing so, I just need to, just for clarification, page 63, I just need to give you a couple of figures here. So on the section where it says Burnley Markets, I believe on your reports, it's just got on two sentences, you've got XX on them. So I've got the figures here. So in regards to how many traders attended level 2 courses, there were 14 traders. And how many traders received business advice? That was 13 traders. So I move my report. Thank you.
Any questions? Any observations? No? Okay. Item 8, questions.
None have been received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes the business for tonight's meeting. Thank you all and have a safe journey home.
Members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.